Hello and welcome to Chatty AF, the Anime Feminist podcast. I'm Dee, the managing editor at AniFem. You can find all my writings on my blog, The Josei Next Door, and you can also hang out with me on Twitter at Josei Next Door. And I am joined today by fellow AniFem staffers, Peter and Vrai.
Hi, I'm Peter. I'm a producer at Crunchyroll and a contributor and editor at Anime Feminist.
Hey, I'm Vrai. I'm an editor and contributor at Anime Feminist and also a freelancer. If you go to my Twitter, @WriterVry, you can find all the stuff I do in my pinned tweet, or you can find the other podcast I co-host at TrashPod.
And today we are checking in on the winter 2019 season. We're about at the midway point, so now seemed like a good time to see how all the shows are doing. As we've kind of started to do with these, we will basically be using our preview guide as our template, so we'll be starting from kind of the bottom of that list and working our way up. To keep these to a reasonable length, we'll be kind of skipping over anything, even if one person is watching, if there's nothing really to report, we'll just kind of jump past that and get into the shows that multiple people are watching, or that, deserves a little extra love or commentary. So with that in mind, the bottom half of the list, as per usual, Peter, you are watching all of the shows.
I am.
Is there anything in that bottom chunk, like the red flags, that you wanted to mention?
Maybe one or two things. Quick question: Do either of you know if WATATEN is done by the same people who did Uzumade?
It is. It's
It is.
Doga Kobe.
Okay. Because it is like the same show, actually. Same story beats. At the halfway point, they introduced a stalker who goes after the main character, wants to make clothes for kids. It's like the same show.
It's so comforting to know they've made a cozy niche for themselves in lesbian pedophile shows.
I don't know if they're just going to keep doing riffs on exactly the same show, but...
I hope not. Doga Kobo is a really good animation studio, and I would like them to do not garbage. Again, like, I don't know, second season of Nozaki-kun, Doga Kobo.
That'd be nice.
Anyway.
No, they'll get the second season of Kobayashi and we'll all suffer.
I do want to say, like with Uzumade, there's like a really good story buried underneath all of the bad stuff. The main girl is very, I guess she's kind of a neat, has a lot of social anxiety. Her younger sister actually tries to help her out. Like, they make a board game where if you fall on a spot, you have to like shake hands with her or say hi to her or something like that to like help her train to socialize with people again. Which is something great that they could have focused on, but they didn't, much like Uzumade. So I'm very sad that they have like a really good story that they decide like isn't strong enough, and they need to bolster it with jokes about stalking minors, I guess. The only other thing I can really think to bring up is Girly Air Force. I remember in Vry's preview, there was mention that it was kind of othering the G and possibly indicating that they were like as an allegory for the Chinese military. Was that the big issues that you brought up?
I mean, it was something that I mentioned. I with no idea of whether it would become a thing.
Okay. Yeah. I just kind of like want to go on our base concerns, and I don't think it's really focusing on that too much. It's made sure to kind of, they've shown a couple shots and of Chinese towns that have been attacked by the G. The main character's sister, I think she's not really a sister, is Chinese. He lived in China for like several years beforehand, so I think they are at least portraying China as like a victim of G attacks. Also, the pilots, whatever they're called, daughters or avatars, daughters of the planes, avatars of the girls, are made of G parts, quote unquote. And they kind of have an arc where you find out all the soldiers hate her because she's made of G parts. And the main character has trouble grappling with that because they killed his parents. But he has to recognize that she's a person and she's not, you're not defined by the alien parts that your body is composed of or something like that. So
Sure.
I think it is not maybe, or it's making attempts to like not be xenophobic. Where
Is it still a tongue bath of the JSDF?
I don't know, I think I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot of it is just like, hey, cool, like fighting in planes is really cool and planes are cool, but they have like, his sister's not happy about it, and the doctor who's kind of running the program is kind of supposed to be a sociopath, I don't think they're really trying to like lionize him or anything like that. So I think maybe they're like taking some cues from Gendo Ikari or something there. That's what he's supposed to be. So I don't. But jets are super.
Sure.
cool.
Doubt,
Okay.
but all right.
Yeah, it sounds.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't have any burning desire to see it, but it sounds like it did not go down the darkest timeline. So good for it. So I guess that brings us to the yellow flags that some of us are watching, and I'll start with this one, which it's weird to see it this low on the list, but it was just because the guys were kind of handsy in the first episode. Meiji Tokyo Renka has turned into one of my favorite shows of the season. It is an otome adaptation where a girl gets sent back in time, and she's also like a spirit medium. And the first episode is really not very indicative of what the rest of the show is going to be. It's mostly a time travel comedy. It's very goofy in a way that I am extremely here for, with Mei trying to deal with living in Meiji era Tokyo and meeting like these real life historical figures who are of course all sparkling pretty boys. And there's a long gag about how she can't remember how much things are, so they'll be like, "Oh, it's 3 yen," and she's like, "That's super cheap," and they're like, "No, that's really expensive." And then like this one guy thinks she's super guy thinks she's cultured because she occasionally drops English into her speech and has heard of 2 Shakespeare plays, because obviously at the turn of the century, like Western culture was just sort of entering Japan, and so a lot of people you didn't casually learn about Romeo and Juliet in school like a lot of kids do nowadays. Um, so it plays with those aspects very well. May is absolutely wonderful. She's really not here for the romance aspect. She's mostly here to eat food and help people with their problems. Um, and then the show kind of tries to shoehorn the romance in, and it doesn't really work, but it's only like 10% of the episode, so it doesn't bother me. Um, it's kind of a mess. The last 2 episodes featured an arc that was a bit uncomfortable at points. One of the characters is an actor, and he spends part of his time cross-dressing as a woman, he's a geisha, basically. And it's not clear if he's researching a part or if this is just something he enjoys doing. The show is pretty chill about it, but its very existence might make some folks kind of uncomfortable. May goes to him for advice on how to be an elegant lady because she doesn't know anything about etiquette in this time period, and she feels like she's embarrassing Ogai, who's kind of taken her in and is looking after her. And I'm not super fond of the idea of like, oh, I need to change myself for a man, but it's at least framed in a way where it's more like, I don't know anything about this time period, and he's been really nice to me, and I just don't want to like embarrass people by making all these social faux pas. So it's played about as well as it could be, I guess. And again, May is she's just so good. They go to a drinking party, and these guys are trying to get handsy, and May just pops them in the face with a tray, while very politely smiling and telling them that sexual harassment is wrong. And the guys are okay. They're not amazing, except Lafcadio O'Hearn because he's adorable. He's just a big puppy dog, and I love him. Um, but yeah, I'm very much enjoying Meiji Tokyo Renka. It's a little bit of a problematic fave, but I would, if folks were kind of put off by the first episode, I would say give it another one because the first episode doesn't really tell you what it's going to be, which is a much sillier, brighter show about a girl screwing around in Meiji era Tokyo.
We've had a rash of good otome protagonists, if not out-and-out good otome shows lately. It's nice.
Yeah, there's definitely been a trend towards them being more active and having personalities instead of just being like flat audience stand-ins, and it's great to see. So I hope that trend continues.
Yeah, it's nice.
Would you say the original placement is accurate, or that it should be moved up?
I think it's probably still a yellow flag just because of some of these kind of on the edge issues where the show keeps from getting like bad, but it's just right there with some of the way the guys treat her. Oh god, I forgot the part where she's training to be a lady and she keeps getting smacked with a ruler and it's played as comedy and it's not funny. Um, but I would keep it in yellow flags, but again, I think there's a lot to like if you can kind of if that sort of 5 to 10% of sort of doesn't push you away. Yeah. So, yeah, I'd keep it there, but again, it's yellow flag just means it's got some problems. It doesn't mean it's, irredeemable or anything. So, okay, next one on the list we are all watching, and I feel like we might have a lot to
That's
talk
so
about here.
surprising to me.
When will I get to watch a garbage anime all the way through?
Yeah.
Somehow we're all three watching this one. Magical Girl Spec-ops Asuka. And we're all caught up, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're recording this, folks, a few days before it's going to go live. So by the time this episode goes up, there will be one more episode of Asuka out. But we've seen through 5, the end of the kidnapping arc.
It was doing so. I was surprised. I've actually gotten a little heat over this, but whatever. People are protective of this genre. That I think this is in some ways the best dark magical girl show we've had in years. In that the genre's not very. It has not, I think, found its voice yet. We had Madoka, which kind of kicked off what the current version of what you would call a dark magical girl show is, even if there were dark elements in magical girl shows before that. But then you had a whole bunch of Madoka copycats, and then you had like the grim, dark, edgy crap like Magical Girl Sight. And I feel like it's, as a subgenre, still trying to find its feet in a way that's not just needlessly showy and nihilistic for shock value or an also ran. And I think this one is closer than most in that, like, it's clearly about Asuka actually wanting to, embracing those positive elements of being a magical girl, even if it's hard, and like saving people. And, the opening and ending have these very this very hopeful imagery, and I like that it is genuinely sympathetic about how it treats PTSD, and it uses actual, like, recuperation and coping techniques.
The surprisingly plausible magical fix for PTSD that actually had some, like, scientific understanding of what happens when you suffer from post-trauma stress.
Yeah. And, like, So I like all of that, and I think it's kind of cute how ugly it is, because it is a very ugly show.
It's not attractive to look at, no, aesthetically.
But then I can brush off some of the weird jiggle physics or whatever, but the torture scene was bad, you guys.
It was bad. Just bad storytelling, too.
Yeah.
Because I was really impressed with the barbecue scene beforehand, because I thought it was very sinister and kind of used the audience's imagination against them. So, but then they just did the torture scene anyway. I was like, no, it would have been scarier if you didn't show what they did.
If they'd just cut from the barbecue scene straight to the arm lopping, that would have been fine. It would still be grim dark, but it wouldn't feel so gratuitous as tying a naked girl to a block with her back arched and her, like, boobs very prominently shoved forward, and then, like, doing water torture on her that if you color changed that water, it would be a hentai.
That was like 5 minutes long, too.
Mm-hmm.
It was just completely unnecessary.
It was so long.
You're not learning anything.
I honestly thought it would be worse than it was. I think I was braced for it to be so much worse than it was, as far as camera framing and shit goes.
Me too.
So I think I wasn't quite as put off as you were, Vrai, but it was bad. I got through that episode, and my roommate's kind of keeping up with it too, and I was like, I need to see how this arc ends, but there's a real good chance I'm going to drop this show like a hot potato. Mm-hmm. And I thought they pulled it back in a way that is keeping me somehow still watching with the next episode and the way they wrapped up the arc. It is, to me, it's what happens when you smash kind of like an edgy, quote unquote, like 1,000 air quotes around the word edgy, like American action flick with the dark magical girl genre. Like, that's the feel I get from it, is like, like a gritty war movie, but with magical girls. And so it has a lot of the elements of that genre in terms of, like, reveling in, shocking violence and look how bad the bad guys are, sort of torture scenes, and it's hot trash. Yeah. Like, let's all be honest here.
Absolutely, it is.
I think we can all agree Asuka is hot trash. But it keeps from, that scene was torture porn. Absolutely, it was bad. But the show as a whole keeps from being misery porn by, like, finding ways to wheedle the story into more this kind of, like, war is hell, but there are things worth fighting for sort of angle.
Yeah.
It keeps, like, finding that thread. And so for all the garbage fan service and Kurumi's poor boobs. And that awful torture scene. I still keep finding myself coming back to it, and maybe I'm just really hard up for some like good trash, but this is as close as it's been for a few seasons.
I think I'm willing to give it another episode or two. Weirdly enough, like, I'm completely done if it goes back into another, like, really gratuitous torture porn scene, because, like...
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
But also, I'm kind of low-key annoyed about Kurumi. Because, like, we've got the obviously evil lesbians on the villainous side, and, like, I just want Kurumi to be actually, like, to some kind of acknowledgement or requirement of her feelings, as opposed to yet another weird pining stalker who's technically on the good guy's side.
Yeah, she's very into Asuka, and she gave off a few yandere vibes for like a half second, and then
I was really
they
concerned
kind of
for a
pulled
moment.
back on that. Me too.
Yeah, I was like, oh no, she's crazy, but then they just stopped doing that.
Yeah, they pulled back from it, which is nice.
I probably would have dropped it if that were the case. I don't need like even the heroes to be creepers that like I can't root for or anything. It kind of wants to be like the Bourne Identity with magical girls, but it just ends up being like a really schlocky Arnold Schwarzenegger movie.
That is apt.
Yeah, but I do also feel like since it wants to be an action movie, that means that the characters have agency, whereas in a lot of dark magical girl shit, it's like they have powers, but the powers do not stop them from being victims who are, at the end of the day, utterly powerless to stop what happens to them. So I feel like Asuka really floats on that, since you feel like the characters can and will do things.
Yeah, I'd say that's a good assessment.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. So I'm always like 5 minutes from dropping it, but I haven't quite done it yet.
Yep.
But I mean, obviously, from our description, I think we would. God might possibly move it down into red flags.
It firmly belongs in red flags now. Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot. We are somehow still watching it.
It's the red flag we're all watching.
There's a lot. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is a rarity. But again, I think there's just enough there that we're kind of intrigued by it. Okay, next one on the list is ENDRO. Peter, did you want to touch on that one at all? Anything worth mentioning, or is it pretty much what it was at the start?
Yeah, well, it had that big event that became big on social media, much like Anime Yell. Are those made by the same people too?
Yeah, I was gonna try to watch that, at least that episode, because ENDRO's not one I was like actively. I liked it okay. It's just that it fell by the wayside because I'm busy, kind of thing. But I did not get to it, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's just very like pastel, goofy comedy show. Pretty inoffensive, but it did have. Was it the last episode? Yeah, they had a scene where I have mixed feelings about it, but I'm also, like, maybe the last person who should be talking about this. They had a scene which kind of generated a bit of buzz on social media when the princess of the kingdom shows up and basically expresses romantic interest in the female hero character. She kind of not quite asked her to get married, and then the girl, she says, that the "but I'm a girl" line, and the princess goes, "Oh, I'll just change the law," which was, I think, a lot of people liked that it was very prominently gay, and also kind of addressed the fact that it's illegal in Japan via this fantasy world's laws. Yeah. And that the law should be changed because it's dumb. So that was good. Personally, I was kind of worried about the character because she's the obsessed, in kind of a creepy way. Not like Kurumi. She's like
Tomoyo.
Yeah, she read hero stories ever since she was a kid. Super obsessed with the hero. Shows up, didn't know the hero was a girl, but says, "Oh, that doesn't matter," because she was just interested in the hero no matter what. Kind of like throws a hero fair where she slaps her face and everything. Is very obsessed with the idea of the hero. Has been around for half an episode. Is I guess going to stick around, but I don't know if they're ever going to address the romance again. So the romantic angle really came out of nowhere, and I don't know if they're going to drop it. So I guess, like, good moment, but I don't really know if they have committed to anything, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Not having had a chance to watch it, it does sound kind of like a fairly standard thing for cute girl shows, where you have kind of the one character who is a really bold, forward fangirl, but it's kind of played for laughs, and even lines like, it doesn't, love is love. It doesn't matter if it's two girls, is usually kind of implicitly played as, this character is so ditzy, she doesn't know about social mores. Ho-ho.
Yeah.
Like, so it just, I guess it depends on if she sticks around and if they then do anything with it, or if that never comes about again. It's like, it's not 1996 anymore. We have moved on from Tomoyo.
I guess I'll report back later on.
That's good. Yeah, and keep us posted on it for that'll be a good one to check in at the series retrospective and see if they kind of commit to that arc or if it falls by the wayside, because that could be really nice if they do stuff with it. So, okay, the next two, Domestic Girlfriend and Pastel Memories, none of us are watching. But the next one we're all watching, it is My Roommate is a Cat. I don't know if we're going to be able to get a ton of in-depth conversation out of this one, but I love it, and it's adorable.
I call this show, Is It Feelings or Am I Off My Meds?
It's feelings, right?
Yeah,
it's okay.
yeah.
It's feelings.
Yeah, that third episode, that's you finish that one and then you call your mom right away.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this one. I like the balance between the human story and the cat story. I like watching the world sort of gradually expand. I think it's really well made, as far as like pacing and direction and everything goes. It's just a really nice story about like building a family, basically.
Yeah, it's nice. I did find Subaru really intolerable in that first episode.
Yeah, I'm apparently the only person who didn't hate Subaru from like day one. I thought we were meant to kind of like laugh at him.
Yeah.
And I think that made it work for me, like his tragic backstory being in that first episode being like someone spoiled a book for him. And I was like, okay, this is funny.
Relatable.
Like he's an antisocial grump, but we're kind of supposed to see it as like, this is you're being silly. Which I thought was sort of a refreshing change of pace from like, I was horribly bullied and mistreated all my life and now I don't trust anybody, you know?
Right.
So yeah, again, I think I'm the only person who thought Subaru was fine from day one.
I was like mostly, and they've more or less dropped it by now, like halfway in, but I find the whole genius male author who gets to treat his publishing agency like trash and not get fired really tiring. That is just a trope that rubs me the wrong way personally, because I know a lot of indie authors who could never get away with that shit.
Yeah, I guess I didn't think he treated I thought Subaru was pretty clear about like the relationship he wanted, as far as like what he wanted an editor to do, and his editor just kind of ignored those boundaries, and I didn't really blame him for being sort of irritated by that. Like, it wasn't like he was ignoring his edits or not turning in his manuscripts on time. Like, he just wanted their relationship to stay professional, and his cinnamon roll of an editor was not having it. So again, I didn't feel like he was treating his editor that badly. I thought he was just pretty blunt about what he needed or wanted out of their relationship.
And I mean, he's come a long way. I feel like the show, once in a while, it tips into, all right, this is not a thing you can solve by becoming more social. I think maybe you should look into therapy. But for the most part, like, it's very good at keeping it on the fact that he has a lot of these stunted social skills from grief and, afraid to, and fear of reaching out to other people. And I feel like it balances that surprisingly nicely.
Yeah, it's been sweet to watch the cat as kind of an entry point for him to connect with other people.
Surprisingly sad, too. I was not expecting this much. I don't know if you two watched the last episode, but
I did!
There's sad stuff in this show. I was expecting
there is.
it too,
I got
but
a little
it
choked
gets
up.
real. Yeah. Messed up.
I mean, this show killed a kitten in the first episode, so, like, it goes hard.
Yeah, but overall, I think it's just good. I can't think of anything that we necessarily need to warn folks about. Some depictions of anxiety, I guess. That's pretty much.
And I mean, there is definitely a fear of dead and dying animals. Like, that's an anxiety for Haru.
Oh, sure, that's fair.
If you're a person who is sensitive to animal death in movies, it might stress you out.
Yeah, that's fair. It's played, I would say, with restraint, for sure.
Absolutely.
But it's an element of the story, because Haru was a stray cat, and the show doesn't shy away from the fact that it's not easy being a stray cat.
Crows are evil, though. Like,
crows are the worst!
I feel like it really portrays crows as, like, villains. I feel bad. Crows aren't bad. That's the problem I have with this show.
Crows are the worst, Peter.
No, crows are fine.
Crows are the worst.
Crows are cute.
Oh, but Ray has cute crows. She had, oh gosh, Demos and Phobos?
Yeah, the gods of the underworld, right?
Yeah. They were
Crows
good
are
crows.
Yeah.
really smart. They're basically like flying cats.
Which I guess is why they are each other's natural enemies in this show.
My big problem with Roommate as a Cat is it portrays crows very negatively, and I don't appreciate that.
Peter's scathing critique of My Roommate as a Cat.
There you go.
All right. Well, okay, let's move on. Because we are about at the halfway point, I think, and there's still quite a bit to talk about here. Okay, none of us are watching Kamurokusa. I kept meaning to go back to it and just never did. But the one above that is Kaguya-sama, Love is War.
Cannot believe how much I like this show.
God, me too. So I watched the first episode of this, I half watched it like over my roommate's shoulder, basically, while I was doing something else. And I found it so exhausting. I was like, I'm never coming back to this. Like, I don't even want to watch the entire first episode on my own. And then Caitlin kept talking it up in our team chat. And then in the 3-episode review, she gave it a really good review. And I was like, okay, I should come back to this. It is Hatakeyama, and I love him. So I need to, he's directing it. So I need to try this out. And I caught up within like a night. And just because I just started with episode 2 and just immediately loved it.
I think it's because the rest of the series doesn't do what episode 1 did, which just made it like galaxy brain confrontations. Because they actually mixed up the formula, period. Because there's like 3 or 4 different like types of skits that they do, which aren't necessarily confrontational, or just kind of result in like one of them coming out ahead. Which that's what I was very disinterested in the first episode, but then the other episodes had other characters playing more prominent roles, them not being pitted directly against each other, and like different scenarios where they weren't just in the room trying to outsmart one another. And I think that's when the show became fun for me, because I just like wasn't too interested in them trying to like beat each other, I guess.
Well, and the more you see of them with other people, the more you realize that, one, they're actually pretty decent kids. They're just very stupid about this one thing. And also, they are idiots. Both of them, in ways that I think is pretty clever. Like, I think the show is very much playing on a lot of like gendered expectations about relationships and romance, in ways that is pretty fun. Like when Shirogane's trying to give dating advice about this girl, and he's like, oh yeah, no, she's definitely into you, and is like playing hard to get, and Kaguya's on the other side of the door like, no, that's not what's going on here at all. You clearly don't actually understand like social cues. And then the very next the next sketch or the next episode, we get the bit about the fact that Kaguya has been like completely sheltered and basically didn't get sex education at all, which is the moment I had to pause because I was laughing so hard I could not read the subtitles anymore.
Yeah, that was brutal.
Yeah, I feel like there was definitely a marked shift between the first episode and the other ones, where the skits in the first episode are mostly kind of humiliation based, where in the other ones shift more towards the person who wants to win wants to show that they are good at something, or to get the other person to give them something, not to get the other person to lose per se, even if it's still totaled in terms of wins and losses. Like, it's about it ends up being about growth.
Yeah, and the show does a good job of balancing it. Like, I feel like the two leads take turns being goofy or, having a nice, admirable moment as well. So it maintains kind of an equality among the cast, which is nice. And also, can we talk about how Chika is the best character of the season?
Chika's very good.
Maybe May is. Anyway, they're both amazing. But yeah, Chika's so good. In the early bits, I thought she was just going to be kind of like the ditzy sidekick character, and she has become so much more than that. She's wonderful.
Yeah, the Guess the Word game was a very good skit as well.
I don't know, I feel like I Raised That Boy is the line of the season where
like
Chika transcended time and space and became a McElroy.
It's extremely memeable.
Yeah, she's good.
Yeah, I had to cap that because she's delightful, and yeah, the relationship between the three of them is fun. Yeah. So,
and we might be getting character development too, hopefully. I don't. It seems like one of those like 4-coma things, which just goes on with the same formula forever. Even though it picks it up and it's actually fun. But they had that one thing with the other school where they actually, what was it? Kaguya defended the guy from the girl who was just yelling French at him. And then they had the moment at the end where she said she liked something about him, but she wouldn't remember what it was. And I was like, oh, is this character development? Is the plot moving forward? But we'll see if that sticks.
I mean, Yamada's first time was based on a 4-coma, I think, and then that that turned out as a really nice series with development and whatnot.
So I'm just wondering, is it going to have a beginning, middle, and end, or is it just going to be skits and skits and skits and skits, and then that was your 12 episodes, all the skits are done?
Yeah, I'll be curious to see if it develops into more of a story format.
Yeah.
But it's funny. I laugh a lot every episode, so I'm happy to see the skits at this point.
Yep.
Like, I'm okay with that.
I could do with like one or with it a little less of the jokes where kind of the joke is that Kaguya is friends with Chika, but will instantly throw her aside if it means it has something to do with her competitive nature. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, this show is funny enough that I don't hate that, but I'd be happier without it.
Yeah, I'd like to see the two of them bond a little bit more. Like the volleyball bit with Chika and Shirogane was so good because it was goofy, but it also kind of has this nice ending of like the two of them having this bonding moment, where they work together towards this common goal. So I'd like to see some more of that with Kaguya and Chika as well. Kind of take on, because I feel like the show is, and this I think this tends to happen with comedies, like even ones that have sharp edges, like you kind of almost have to soften over time, or otherwise it just feels mean. And I think we're seeing that with Kaguya-sama in ways that I enjoy, so I hope that it kind of continues to go that way while still having that kind of social critique bite to it that I'm enjoying quite a bit.
They've also gone to the well of boob jealousy more than once, and that can stop.
Yeah, I binged it all at once, and so I think the more annoying bits kind of floated out of my head.
Yeah, I mean, like, nitpicks aside, it's so good looking. Oh my god, it's so stylish.
Yep.
Yeah, Hatakeyama's a hell of a director. Turns out he can do comedy. Turns out he can do whatever the hell he wants. And I would love to see him do an original work at some point, because he adapts the hell out of stuff, so... For the folks at home who are like, who the fuck is Hatakeyama? I'm sorry, I told myself I wasn't going to drop an F-bomb in this podcast, but here we are. Hatakeyama directed Showagen Roku Rakugo Shinju, is probably the one folks listening to this would be most familiar with. He did Sankarea, which he elevated what was really not very good source material into a surprisingly good little anime.
Record of Grand Crest War.
He did Grand Crest War, which I maintain that the direction was quite good. The story just wasn't. That's not his fault. So this is a good pairing of solid material with a director who is making it very energetic and exciting to watch, and it's really well done visually. Because I think this is a show that could be very boring, but the camera's very active, and there's some nice little touches of like surrealism, and it's delightful.
Yeah, love the Yeti.
Okay, we do need to keep going, but the next couple none of us are watching, so this is easy. Dimension High School and Bermuda Triangle Colorful Pastoral, and that ends the harmless fun category and gets us up into the It's Complicated category, which I'm glad we added that one. Bottom of this list, The Promised Neverland. All three of us are watching. All three of us have read the manga, so we need to be real careful not to give anything away.
Yeah, this one's going to be really hard to discuss, especially when you're talking about the merits. Can we even say anything?
I don't care for the doll.
Yeah, that was a bad addition. I don't like it.
I am so much more bothered by Sister Crone in the anime than I was in the manga, and I haven't gone back and done like a comparison to the original panels to see if maybe it was handled better. I have some suspicions as to why that is, but I am much more uncomfortable with her portrayal in the anime.
Yeah, she's crazy in the anime. I think she's flat out crazy. And in the manga, she is not crazy. She's basically the same as Mom. She's scheming. She's very clever, and I think the anime did a thing, and I appreciate the attempt. They did a thing where they wanted to drop the inner monologues, which I think works fine in like print, but can slow down visual media a lot. So I don't mind them trying to shuffle everything into speech and action rather than inner monologues, like it is in the manga quite a bit. But because of that, they added a doll, and then immediately got rid of it when it had served its plot purpose, which was to give Crone something to talk at. So we'd flashbacks, though. I mean, there's going to be flashbacks. You can just use those to frame what her goal is. Because if you watch the flashbacks, you'll know what she's trying to do. You don't need her to say out loud what she wants to do. I think that's like in conflict with what they're trying to do, where they kind of have all the they show what the characters are thinking by what they do, and like by what's happening. to try to eliminate, like as you said, all the monologues that happen inside the manga. But in this one, they're basically giving her something to monologue at rather than letting the action show what her goals are, which I would have used flashbacks.
It was awkward, and it shifted her character in a way that made the already unfortunate portrayal issues, I think, more so. I also think, and again, I'd have to go back and look at the manga, but I know when I was reading it, I felt like Demizu's art uses a lot of contorted faces for everybody.
Yeah.
And in the anime, I feel like they're saving a lot of that for Crone in a way that's, again, very, very poor decision portrayal that ends up just looking like they're specifically caricaturizing the black woman in the cast.
Like talking about Promised Neverland, there's like a whole core level of issues of caricatured character design and certain racialized character traits that she was given, and we've linked Jackson P. Brown's article before in the 3-episode review, which you all should definitely read. But in a different,
we'll link it in the podcast post as well. We'll link it again. It's worth reading.
Like, but like in addition to that, I feel like they have made so many bad decisions with Crone. Like first you have the doll, which makes her look like it's not just that she wants to be a mom. It's that the way she treats that doll, it's like they're trying hard to imply that she would specifically be a bad mom, like that.
Yeah.
She abuses it.
Which is not a present thing in the manga at all.
No, not at all.
It's just that she didn't win out for the position.
So it was you that brought up the plausible good reason for having the doll?
Yes, but we can't talk about it. That's heavily spoiler.
Oh, yeah. Damn.
But I don't think it applies anymore with what they've done with it.
Yeah. I mean,
since they immediately got rid of it. Yeah.
I liked the way that you thought of what the originating idea for the doll might have been, but yeah, in execution, it was just bad. Man, we're coming down hard on the Promised Neverland, which we all love.
I know, and here's the thing. We've been so high on the manga. I wrote an article about it.
I love the manga.
I mean, I've always been really upfront about the fact that like Sister Crone's character design is bad, and there's a lot of issues with it.
No escaping it.
But other than it was one of those things where it was like if you just either had other black women in the cast, like prominent figures, because I mean there's like a kid, but she's barely in it.
Jemima does not have lines, and also her name is Jemima.
I know that was a bad choice, guys. Like if you just like either had more or just not made Crone a black woman, I think her actual character in the manga, again, and the two have deviated at this point, so like I don't feel like I'm saying spoilers right now. I liked the character arc, and so I was kind of able to go, oh, this sucks, but I can look past. I can kind of look past it and like look at the other really good stuff this series is doing.
Yeah, the conclusion of her character arc
in
is
the
really
anime,
good.
It's just they've just some of the changes they've made, then the way they've exaggerated other aspects that were already kind of negative in the manga. Like it's a lot harder for me to focus on the other stuff.
I feel like
right now
in the manga you could say that like the way visually she's represented is very bad, but when you like come down to the way she's characterized and her like narrative arc, they're good, right?
I think so, but it's also not our lane.
Yeah,
super
sure.
not
I'm
our
not
lane.
sure we should.
But
I will say I liked her character, and I wound up having she's maybe my favorite character at the end of the day in the series.
Yeah, I don't want to put quality labels on it because that's so not our place to do. But I will say I will say I liked it. Yeah. There were definitely some things about it that made me uncomfortable, but overall I liked it. And the anime, I just dislike everything about it. It feels like the manga maybe was like unconscious bias, and the anime it feels conscious.
Yeah, that's like kind of what I was trying to get at. And I'm worried that her ending is going to be different now because the way they're framing her, which would
I'm a little concerned about that too, and that would be real bad.
They are coaching her to sound like Jun Fukuyama, and I don't know what that's about. She sounds like Grell. Like they've gone for unhinged so hard, and I don't like it.
Well,
no, me neither.
So, I guess fingers crossed. But it's already pretty not great.
I hope they can get her character back on track, but I don't feel super great about that at this point. And again, we don't want to get too deep into things, but I think the characterization for pretty much everybody is really, really good in the manga, and I think we're losing or sort of having some of that sort of shuffled around in ways that I'm not fond of in the anime.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of people who are anime only talking about Emma in terms of like her canniness doesn't show up so well until I think that's better now in the most recent episode where specifically she's talking with Ray and like clearly seeing through him even if she's not calling him on it. Like I think that's starting to come across now, but definitely for the first 3 or 4 episodes I saw a lot of people like, oh well, she's kind of the ditzy heart of the team who's good at physically, but and also we keep harping on this imagery of how she's going to be a mom, which I feel like it's not that it's not there in the manga, it's just that there were other factors that pulled you away from it and then they took those out for the anime.
And again, I think that is one of those places where dropping the internal monologue, I think like animation wise and like a lot of the directing decisions have been effective for the show. But I do think that I think that the dropping of the internal monologue means it will take you longer to kind of see the full picture of who Emma is. Because she is a very bright, optimistic person while also being, very intuitive and clever and a fierce survivalist. And so, I think we'll get there with Emma. I think we'll be fine on that front. But yeah, I think it is taking a little bit longer for that to be clear for folks who are just watching the anime. If the anime can do right by Emma, then I think it will save itself despite some serious problems in these early episodes.
I think we should say overall, I believe at least all of us really enjoy the anime and think it's well directed and the story is great. We can say that. I mean,
there are definitely times where like there were times catching up where I thought I should just go back to reading the manga. Then there would be like one really good looking scene and I thought, oh, that's nice. Mm-hmm. But my feelings are decided. I love the manga a lot. It's probably the most I've enjoyed a Shonen Jump manga in years, but the anime is, it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am now, too. Especially because I just read the most recent volume and I'm reading it like, fuck, this is so good. So, okay, we should move on. Next on the list, I think I'm the only... No, Peter, you're watching Grimm's Notes, the animation. I didn't know you were watching that one.
Yeah.
How you're saying hell yeah a lot. Do you like it?
Actually, I'm not sure. It's a little, like, blandish and formulaic. I'm just really wondering if they're going to do anything with this really insane world they've set up where like everybody's fate is predetermined, whether that's going to get any action, because I feel like the villain could potentially be a good guy or have very good reasons for doing what he's doing.
Yeah, it's such a good concept, and I feel like first of all, I really do like the characters. Like they're a bit archetypal, but they're very pleasant to spend time with. There's not really much in it that I feel like I need to really warn folks about. Mm-hmm. The characters all have like magic powers where they can turn into other like fictional characters, and there's no gender restrictions on that, which is kind of neat. So they'll just kind of pull out whichever character they want that day. But yeah, no, and it feels like almost every episode it pushes up against this idea of like being stuck in these roles and these like prescribed paths sucks. Like every week they keep pushing up against it, and then it's like they keep kind of pulling back at the very end. And I really want to see what they're doing with that overall. Yeah. Because I feel like they've made the characters who kind of fall to the darkness, if you want to say it like that. I think the Chaos Tellers is what they call them. Mm-hmm. I feel like they've made them very sympathetic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like it still doesn't justify like they are still hurting other people and they shouldn't be doing that. And so like it is good that that our team of roleless magical travelers show up and like get that settled. But then they just throw everybody back in their prescribed roles, and I'm like, but
hope it works out.
You just showed us why this sucks. Yeah. So I'm very, very curious to see what it's doing with a really, really fascinating premise. But execution wise, I think every week it's fine. It's fine. I'm still watching it. So
it's blandish, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, I think I'm interested for the same reasons you are. It'll be really interesting if they actually do anything with this, which some mobile it's a mobile game, so some mobile adaptations. I thought it was a light novel.
Because if it's a mobile game, I want to play it. Because honestly, I've been watching it, like, this would make a really good, like, action-adventure RPG.
Online free-to-play role-playing game by Square Enix.
you're right.
Android and iOS.
I don't know why I thought it had a light novel.
Come on, they're pulling out the
clearly I was
cards and
looking at the
turning
wrong
into
show.
storybook characters. It's hella gotcha. They even in the pirate episode, they all had their beach outfits. Like, this is hella gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, I totally thought it looked like it felt like an RPG. The beach episode, by the way, was nice because it didn't really fan service it up. Like, they were in swimsuits, but it didn't get creepy about it, so that was nice. They were just kind of cute swimsuits.
I liked the bow that was a inflatable dolphin with a string on it.
Yes, yeah. The beach themed weaponry was incredible.
Extremely good. Yes.
The art design wise, I think there's some nice touches. Some of the monster designs have been really neat. So it's I think we both kind of keep coming back to it because these central ideas are really fascinating. So I want to see if they push up against that and commit to it.
It hasn't really fucked up either. So no complaints on my side at least.
No, I don't have any major complaints either.
Yeah.
So it's fine.
Yep.
It's a pleasant 22 minutes each week with some interesting background ideas to chew on that I hope they do something with. So we'll see. Okay, cool. I get to take a break for this next one. It's Dororo. I got a few episodes in, and I still have it listed as a show I've watched. My bad, guys. No, I dropped it after 4. But y'all can talk about it. Dororo,
well, I think
go.
I'm at 4, so...
Wait, you also dropped it?
No, I didn't drop it. I plan to continue watching it. I've just not watched the latest episode, which is 5.
No, it's up to 6, my dude.
Oh, shit. Okay, I'm 2 episodes behind then.
All right, it's me. It's all me. I like this show. It's still it's doing better than Banana Fish. I've been talking with Lauren, who is recapping it for Anime News Network, and she went and hunted down the entire manga to read for comparison, and apparently the anime is quite far afield in certain elements, so that encourages me a lot in terms of how they plan to handle the story and update certain things that might have been problematic in the original source material. It is kind of an inherently ableist premise. Like, there's, even with rewriting, there's no getting around the fact that this is about a swordsman character who, lost his limbs and all of his senses because his father made a deal with a demon, and so he is, quote unquote, a broken or like a hollowed out husk who's trying to become whole again by fighting these demons and getting parts of himself back. It's what it is. It kind of sucks in that regard. But I will say that, and I'm really looking forward to one of our contributors writing about this series. They've done pieces about disability in anime for us before. But aside from that, I feel like Tezuka is trying to do something with this series. It's during the Sengoku era, and there have been a lot of other characters with disabilities, and, predominantly missing limbs, or mobility issues, besides Hyakimaru, the superpowered disability guy, and in terms of just living their lives, trying to go on, getting hold of prosthetics. I feel like for the 60s, Tezuka really, really wanted to say something progressive about how you're not necessarily you're not broken when these things happen and you can go on. And as the show goes on, I kind of get the feeling that, this is Tezuka, the guy who wrote Astro Boy, which was really important as far as talking about, nuclear anxiety in post-World War II Japan. I kind of feel like this is his MASH in that it's quote-unquote about the Sengoku era, but it's super not actually about that. And so there's a lot of really beautiful moments in the series where it's just these kind of quiet moments about surviving and grief, and at one point in a more recent episode, Hyakumaru gets his hearing back, and the first thing he hears is somebody weeping over their dead loved one who died as collateral damage so that he could get this piece of himself back. And it's full of just really beautiful small touches like that, and it's MAPPA, so it looks really pretty. And I don't know, it's definitely, this is based on a 60s and a 60s manga, but also it's certainly one of the better adaptations of a classic series that I've seen in a while, and I'm having a good time watching it.
Yeah, I'll be honest, the only reason I dropped it is I've been stressed out a lot recently.
It's dark.
And the show is it's kind of a tough watch.
Yeah.
And I just, as you may have noticed from the other stuff I'm watching, a lot of it's pretty light and pleasant. I think Promised Neverland is one of the major exceptions, and a large reason I'm sticking with that is because I love the manga as much as I do. So yeah, it wasn't like there wasn't anything about it where I pointed to it and said, I don't like this. I was like, this isn't what I want to be watching at this exact point in my life. So it's a show I could absolutely see myself going back to, especially if your future reports on it are positive.
I will say that it's not good with women. Basically, every woman who's appeared on screen has died, and they've either been like mothers and caretakers, or evil monsters, or the recent 2-episode arc was a out-and-out hooker with a heart of gold story, although apparently she was still given more development than she got in the manga. So, yeah. But I like it a lot.
I really like Dororo. I will say that.
I like him, and I hope they don't. I hope they do right by my son. They've passed by several. They've passed by several points where they could have been shitty. So my hopes are slowly building. And the brotherly relationship is good.
I think it. I remember watching it and just thinking it did what Megalobox really failed to do by making like an interesting spin on an older story. By rather than updating the setting, it updated the story. It occurs during the same time, but I feel like all the changes that they've made have really made it way more interesting than if they'd been faithful to the manga, because all the stuff I've heard about the manga sounds really corny and bland. Maybe revolutionary for its time, but not anymore.
Tezuka's kind of a goofball. And I will say, like, honestly, I the tone they're going, I think if they had gone for a bit more of that Tezuka tone, I probably would have stuck with it. Because it is, again, it's a bit bleak.
Yeah.
But I could also see how that could be really jarring or sort of take away from the more serious elements of the story as far as, like, the Sengoku War and everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, they definitely nixed a lot of fourth wall stuff, and I'll be honest, I'm not too hot on Tezuka right now, but that's not his fault. It's because the last thing I read was MW, and fuck that manga.
I haven't read it, but I'll take your word on it. Yeah, so
I like it.
one to keep an eye on for sure. I'm glad, yeah, and it's not one that I could see myself going back to it for sure.
Yeah, just baby. Apparently, several readers informed me that it's going to be a 2-core, so that should make it.
Oh, yeah, that's plenty of time for me to decide to come back to it too. So cool.
So that's nice.
Yeah, that gives them plenty of time to tell the story. Cool. Okay. All right, next one on the list. This might not take super long. Peter, you're the only person watching Boogiepop and Others.
Yep.
I dropped it at 3.5 episodes when I realized I just didn't care about anything that was going on. So, how are you doing with it?
So I really liked the first 3 episode subplot. I thought it was really cool. I liked the ending. I thought it was kind of like, it was confusing, but it came together really neatly. And like, you know how they like did it out of order and everything. This next subplot seems to be chronologically in order, but there's just so much shit going on. The first plot felt very contained, and there were like a good number of character groups, but they all felt like important and relevant, and the story still felt like really small. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
in this new one, they're just introducing like secret organizations and like weird superpowered guys running around, and it just feels like chaotic by comparison, even though it's being shown in order. I don't know what anybody wants. I don't know why they're doing it. I don't know who half the characters. I mean, I know who they are, but I don't know why they are or why they've been included in the story or what their role is. So I don't know if they're going to be able to wrap it up in a bow again. But yeah, I'm not as charmed as I was by the first 3 episode arc, and I'm becoming concerned that maybe it's actually kind of a very loose, crazy story, which is kind of a pattern that's emerging where we're resurrecting old light novel adaptations. That first anime adaptation was like done by an acclaimed director. Seems to be a thing that keeps happening. Yeah. But yeah.
Well, wasn't the original Boogiepop anime more like a spin-off story? It wasn't a direct adaptation from the light novels.
Yeah, spin-off, famous director, made a very self-contained story kind of in-universe, kind of doing their own thing, much like Kino's Journey. I'll say it. So I feel like that kind of doesn't really set your expectations up for the new adaptation. And these both times where they're trying to be like more have more fidelity to the light novel. The story is just very like loose and has a lot of accessories and isn't as good.
Yeah, and I don't know how much they're covering, but if they're trying to cram like an entire novel into 3 episodes, I mean that would also explain some of the because I thought the first 3 episodes were kind of a mess, to be honest. And I was willing to stick with it, and then I started the next one, and it was different characters, and I was like, oh, well, I just got mildly attached to these people, and now they're gone, so I guess I'm done. Was why I sort of fell off on it. I've heard decent things about the light novels, and about the novels. I guess, are they light novels or novels? Anyway.
I should probably get to the more relevant stuff, though, which is
Yeah, sorry.
a whole lot of girls are dying in this show. It seems like women are mostly around to get killed, to show you how dark the world is. Ugh. That was very apparent in the first 3 episodes.
I noticed that in the first 3, but there were enough like prominent female characters that I thought, oh, maybe it'll adjust that as it goes. Sounds like it did
well,
not.
There's been less killings lately, and more like there's weird stuff happening to them, and you don't know if the fate is really going to be good. It's what like the new villain does, mind control stuff. So, which also happened. They introduced a gay character. He's kind of in. He hasn't been killed, but he's kind of in a dire situation, which fate uncertain, but could be problematic.
Did they de-gay the gay guy, Peter?
No. Well, I mean, I kind of as an accessory to what happened to him. The guy like brainwashed him, took like control over him, and now is making him do stuff to further the Eagle organization's rule. And like the guy, he's just an empty shell now. But it's been the possibility for him being freed exists. You know it exists. Not sure if it's going to happen to him or if he's going to get killed or what at this point. I don't really think they like messed with his sexuality so much as they like robbed him of his agency as a human being, which has happened to like 4 characters this arc. But that's what the villain does. Yeah, they have a prominent gay character. Don't know what's going to happen to him yet, but he has the same bad thing happen to him that has happened to a couple other characters in this arc. So we'll see if it does a bad thing. Yeah. Besides that, I have major concerns about the storytelling and stuff like that. Still watching it though.
Yeah, and how they're
still interested.
Yeah. Another one to check up on again. It's almost like the mid-season check-in happens halfway through multiple plot lines.
What? No.
Imagine that. The next one up is Price of Smiles. Right, Peter, you are both keeping up with this one?
I really like this show. I don't know why.
I was going to say, someone convinced me to go back to it because I dropped it after 4.5 episodes.
I don't know if I can do that for you.
I didn't quite trust it to follow through on what I think it needs to do to be a good show, and I decided that there were other things I'd rather be watching, so I stopped. Yeah. But I'm excited to hear if it ends up following through on some of those promises, because if it does, I'll go back to it.
Yeah, I don't...
Vrai.
I don't know what it is. Because, like, in certain ways, this is a very trope-dependent war-bad story, like, with Gundams. Have you watched a Gundam? This is probably like a Gundam.
Yeah.
And, like, it has nice mobile suit battles. They call them something else, but, like, they're mobile suits. And, you know, war is bad, and people need to talk about it, and there's a focus on the civilians, but there's something about the execution that really draws me. Like, I like that there's not a lot, that there's, aside of the fact that Yuki's outfit is really, really stupid, the other female characters are all competent and interesting and distinct from one another, and their outfits are practical, or at least practical for their jobs. I like that while these are some fairly standard tropes, the writing handles them with relative restraint. Like, even when you do there's a terrorist bombing in episode 4, the last one you watch, that's like the most out there the series gets, and I've seen worse. And a lot of times it's just these very, like, quiet scenes of like grief and loss and people thinking about it, and a fair, like, it's cheating a little bit in that it sometimes feels like fan fiction, that thing that fan fiction does where everybody knows the baseline thing, so you can just kind of dial in on the character stuff you want to explore, except it doesn't always tell us the baseline thing. I feel like D, you kept asking me while you were watching it, what are they fighting over again?
I was like, I know I watched some of the early episodes kind of sleepy,
Right.
so maybe I just
Come on,
missed it.
it's
But
resources. Weren't you paying attention? It's resources.
Yeah, no, I get it. War
They're
bad.
fighting
War
over
over
resources. Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm weirdly charmed by the fact that its opening is a lie. Like
the opening theme, yeah.
it reverse fridges the plucky, hot-blooded male love interest in episode 2. And ever since then, it's gone on to compound how incredibly inaccurate its opening theme imagery is. And I find that kind of delightful. In addition with the fact that it looks pretty, and I like these characters well enough, and I sort of admire the way it goes out of its way to avoid melodrama. And I feel like as dumb child protagonists go, Yuki is by far the least annoying that I've seen in a while.
Yeah, she's good, actually. I really like Yuki as well. I was really surprised that he was dead, actually, because you see him still in a bed, so I'm just like, is this death or coma? I have no idea. I'm going to assume it's coma.
No, he is super dead, my man!
Yeah, but then she visits his grave later, I'm like, oh, he's totally dead, wow.
Kind of awful.
Yeah. Yeah, they fridged him fast. No, I think the point where I finally went, I just don't think I can keep watching this was the end of episode 4, where it was like all of the adults are terribly disappointed that the 12-year-old made a naive choice when they hadn't even really bothered to keep her posted on what was going on in the war and how things were going.
Thank you, Dee.
And I felt like they wanted me to be angry at Yuki with them, and I was like, no, she's 12. Why did you put a 12-year-old in charge and then get upset when she made decisions that a good kid, like not even like a shitty kid, like she made decisions that a good kid would make because they're not thinking like 2 steps ahead, like you need to if you're running a country or, a general in a war.
Yeah, she's even shown to be very intelligent, but usually she's making decisions without all the information because they'd never give her any fucking information. So yeah, Vrai, when you said like that, kind of contextualized it for me. I just hated all the adults in her kingdom. And then you're just like, oh well, they're kind of like Zeon, or at least how Zeon originally was before they showed the both sides thing in Gundam, where it's like, oh, they're the bad guys. I was like, yes, they are. They're totally the bad guys.
And that's my thing. If the show does that, if the show commits to like, oh no, this empire is actually like hoarding resources and they kind of suck, and Yuki starts to realize that, I think it could be a really good show and I would absolutely come back to it. I'm not 100% sure that's what it's trying to do.
I suspect
I think it might be trying to criticize Yuki for being a naive child. And I don't think that's cool. So
yeah, I think they are going towards a good place, but also they're not free of that burden with the most, because at the end of the most recent episode, she tries to give herself up to the Empire, and they say, yeah, we'll totally do that, and then they shunt her off on an evacuation ship to the hinterlands.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at.
That's what I can't stand about the series. They're like saying you have to lead and you can't turn away from this, while simultaneously denying her information and disobeying her orders whenever it's convenient to them. So she's not actually in charge and she doesn't have the information to make decisions, but randomly they let her make decisions, and it turns out about 50-50 because I don't know what their rhyme or reason for doing anything is. And I think it just sucks either way. Like, you should have either not let her be in charge because she's fucking 12, or you should let her be in charge, and when she makes an important decision, actually follow it because you've committed to letting this person be your leader. And that's what I hate about the series.
Yeah, and like, if they are in fact moving towards these are the antagonists, fine, whatever. I feel like they have certainly poured a lot of time into Stella and her unit, and that stuff on the ground.
I liked the episode with them. I was ready to drop the show, and then we got the episode with Stella, and I was like, oh, I like this team. Can we follow this team? And then we immediately went back to Yuki, and then I started to have the issues I just mentioned.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I do want to know, with the show definitely did an Evangelion poll with Stella and the pink-haired girl, and I want to know, is it telling me that they're girlfriends or that they're secretly related? It could go either way.
I don't think they're related, because we already have her know her secret relation, which probably won't end well for anybody knowing these types of series. Yeah, I don't, and I think like the promise is just more tragedy too, so it's hard for me to get enthusiastic about what could possibly develop from all this. I'm still watching it, but like, it's done some stuff that's really bothered me, and it's really trying to make everything so fucking sad all the time.
That was my other concern. My other concern was it was going to kind of spin out into like tragedy porn a little bit.
Yeah, there's still room for it to do that.
Like very restrained tragedy porn, but so yeah, that's why I sort of halfway dropped it. But I'm glad you're both watching it because I think there's a lot of potential here, and if it fulfills that potential, I will go back to it absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to hear what y'all think at the end of the season.
Yeah, I think right now all of the pieces are in place. It's just a matter of it knows where to put them and how to tie that conclusion together well.
Okay, we're running long somehow. I thought we were doing good.
the rule.
But this is the
We
last
have to
one on
run
our
long.
list. We will skip sequels and carryovers for this one, but we'll do them in the series retrospective. So the last show on the list. I mean, we could do like a lightning round if there's something you really want to shout about, Peter.
Yeah, there is.
Okay, well, we'll tag on a lightning round then. I mean, you're the one who has to edit it, so if we go long, that's on you.
I'll make the sacrifice.
Okay. But the last new show on our list is the Magnificent Kotobuki. We are all watching this one. I didn't know you were keeping up with this one, Peter.
I am. I'm. The stationary cycle has given me superpowers, and I'm keeping up with so many shows that I need to find new shows to watch.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you.
I enjoy the show a lot. It is a little exhausting at times, but just because it's a very rapid fire. It almost has the feel of like I said this in my 3-episode review too. It almost has the feel of like a manzai comedy routine in terms of being just like super fast paced as far as the dialogue back and forth goes. But I enjoy the characters. I think the aerial battles continue to be like really technically impressive. I don't have a ton of deep thoughts about it. I just have a good time with it every week.
I find it kind of exhausting.
Well, yeah, I did mention that.
Yeah, no, you're right. And like, I feel like when it's on, it's really on, and then then there are some episodes where I'm just like, I'm not keyed into what you're doing, so it's just a bunch of stuff happening at me really fast, and I don't care.
I wish I could watch it dubbed or on maybe like 0.5 speed, a little bit slower.
Slower?
So I could because it's really rapid
they
fire.
talk so fast. Okay.
Yeah, the dialogue is very rapid fire, and I think the dialogue is really fun. I like Yokote's. I like the kind of wit she brings to her scripts, but it's hard to soak it in at times because it is coming at you like the rat-a-tat of their guns.
I really liked episode 4.
So, Vrai, it sounds like you're not into it at all.
No, I think it's fine. Like, I really liked episode 4. It kind of reminded me of Princess Principal, to be honest. And then episode 5...
Which one was episode 4 again?
That was the Steal the Painting one.
Yes.
Yeah, that one was really good. That one took a little bit more time to breathe, I think.
Yeah.
And, like, I think it really succeeded for it. And then all the other episodes have been, like, I like elements of this. I like some of the ideas they're going with. I really like, Julie is her name? The woman who's perpetually
the
tired.
politician, right? Are you talking about the politician? Yeah. She's very annoyed, but also a boss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't dislike any of the girls. It's just that I feel like every episode the show has a thing that it wants to do, and then if you on board with the premise, then that is great, and you are going to have a great time. And if it misses you, or you're not, like, clicking with what they're doing, then it's just... The aerial stuff, I think, by, necessity, is a little bit less flashy as the show's gone on, because they have to, conserve resources and all of that, which is fine. Mm-hmm. But it just means that I have more time to think about the writing, which I think is weaker than the visuals on this particular show. So sometimes it just seems like I'm strapped in for something that's just okay, but I also can't look away from it to play with my phone. So it's a lot of things all at once.
I might lean more toward Vrai on this one. Like, I actually, that's a really good example, because on the setup to the infiltration episode, the one where it was just the guys showing up and saying, hey, trade the Raiden for this painting, and then they get into this big town defense thing, I was just so bored for that entire episode. Then the next one, they like infiltrate the guy's base, and they meet the girl painter, and they kind of do some fun stuff, and they show like that rest stop in the middle of nowhere, and that girl's in the back of the plane, and she does somersaults to throw her around when she's annoyed with her. I felt like all those things were funny or interesting things. It's just like the show's super hit or miss for me, and I don't really know what it's trying to be. Because, the Princess Principal was the thing. or Release the Spice. I was wondering if it was trying to be one of those types of shows, but a lot of the time they're just kind of being very reactionary or listless even, and I'm not always on track for what the show's like really trying to accomplish, especially because like with both of the other shows in that example, I think they are trying to go for like this strong kind of like thematic visual style. Like Princess Principal was trying really hard to be steampunk, and it had the visual chops to pull that out. But this show, I don't know, the character designs and the CG kind of don't mix. I feel like the world could look really interesting, but I don't know if they have the resources to make it look interesting. And if you set a world like up in this like Ghibli-esque kind of like World of Plains, Porco Rosso type deal, I feel like you're wanting to make it look good, but if you can't do that, then it just feels very barren. So I feel very differently about the show depending upon what's going on, but I think most of the time I'm just kind of okay on it.
Yeah, like there has yet to be an episode that I have disliked. There just are a couple where I got a little fidgety, but I had to look at it because everything happens so fast, and sometimes there is a good joke or a really cool flying maneuver, and you don't want to have missed that one because you looked away for a minute.
I loved the whole thing in episode 3 with Elite Industries being like, we're a corporation, we're not pirates, and it was such a good running joke about like there's actually not that much of a difference between an exploitative corporation and a criminal organization. I thought it was kind of brilliant.
That was sly.
So,
I liked that.
They had a song, but I don't know. I mean, Mizushima's he's an interesting director, and that style of like rapid fire may have also been something he wanted to do with this particular show. I don't know. I have nothing else to add.
Yeah.
I'm out of words.
Your mileage may vary.
I am glad that you were having a good time with it, genuinely.
I like it. But remember, Peter, when you were like, Girly Air Force is all about how planes are cool? That's how I feel about Magnificent Kotobuki.
I was thinking about Kotobuki when I was saying that, to be honest.
I'm very fond of, like, kind of the old-fashioned, like, World War I era sort of plane, like, aerial battle type stuff, and so having an anime that is playing with that and has characters who I wish they had more development, but I find them all fun. Okay. Well, it's too bad you guys aren't liking it as much, but that's fine.
I just got majorly dunked on for Price of Smiles. We're both okay. Sorry, sequels.
That's true.
Spread evenly.
That's true. Yeah. We're actually more split on these than I thought we would be, which is interesting. It makes for better podcasting, right? That's how that works. So. Okay, so there was something in the sequels carryover shorts category that you wanted to touch on, Peter?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say the best rom-com of the past 5 years, Black Clover, is back with a new dating episode, which was very good.
Okay, good to know. I also think we were both on the same page that Mob Psycho 100 is very good this season.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
It's a bit darker than I thought it would be, which I kind of missed the lightheartedness, but it's doing some
I thought
stuff.
The first season was kind of mean-spirited at times, so I think the second season is I think by the second half of the first season it had settled into what it wanted to be, which was a story with a kinder undercurrent to it, and I think season 2 is following through on that more. But yeah, no, it's definitely gone some intense places along the way, and it looks beautiful, and it's been really good.
Extremely very good.
Some fat jokes in the second. I didn't like the second episode very much. It leaned back into that kind of mean-spirited tone that some of the early stuff had, I think, with some kind of sort of some fat jokes about the
other psychic guy
exorcist they met up with. Yeah. But otherwise this season has been excellent. Like, I was a little bit lukewarm about season 1, and I'm like very up on this one.
Oh,
so
didn't know that.
I did want to call that one out as well. Okay, I think that's it. I think we are done here. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Chatty AF. If you like what you heard, tell your friends about our show. And if you really like what you heard, we'd love it if you'd head on over to our Patreon and become a patron for at least $1 a month. Your support really goes a long way towards making Anime Feminist happen both in print and in your earbuds. So if you're interested in that, the link is www.patreon.com/animefeminist. If you want to hear more from the team and our contributors, you can check us out at www.animefeminist.com, on Facebook at AnimeFem, on Tumblr at AnimeFeminist, and on Twitter at AnimeFeminist. And that's the show. Thanks for listening, AniFam, and we will catch you in a couple of weeks.